How are you guys doing? Today is Friday, April 16th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile of Nolan Arenado, the starting third baseman for now the St. Louis Cardinals. If you're unfamiliar with Nolan Arenado, he's one of the best defensive third basemen in the history of the sport. Ever since he came into the league from 2013 to 2020. He's won the Gold Glove every single year. That's 8 straight years of being the best defensive third baseman. Not to mention, this dude can actually hit incredibly well for power too. And with this profile, I plan on providing context and background in his career just to show how he got to where he is right now. Today he turns 30 years old, and we're just looking at what Nolan Arenado's MLB career is looking like as he enters his 30s. So once again, if you're unfamiliar with him, if you haven't, he's once again an amazing third baseman. He hits incredibly well. He would be a top prospect coming out of Newport Beach, California. And then he was eventually taken in the second round with the 59th overall pick in the 2009 MLB draft. And then he decided to sign with the Rockies out of high school instead of go to college. He would eventually get called up for the Colorado Rockies in 2019. And that's when he was 22, and that's officially where his career took off. In 2013, his age 22 season, he would play 133 games in a season where the Rockies finished with a 74-88 record, completely missed the playoffs. But in this season, you'd see Nolan Arenado finishing with 130 hits in those 133 games, just 3 less hits than games played, 49 runs scored. He finished with 29 doubles on the season, 10 home runs against 52 RBIs, batting .267 with a .706 OPS. He would go on to finish 7th in the Rookie of the Year voting, but he would go on to win the Gold Glove in his very first year of playing with the Colorado Rockies, which of course would be the first season in a very long and what could possibly be going on is one of the most impressive active streaks of winning an award that we've ever seen. But after the Rockies, of course, wouldn't win, of course, and following the season where he was a Golden Glove, he was officially on the radar of the MLB. In 2014, he would have to deal with injury problems more so than he did the first season. He would end up playing 111 games for a Colorado Rockies team that ended up winning 66 games. That would end up being 8 less. They won 8 less games than they did the year before. Nolan Arenado played less, but in this 111 games, he would finish with 124 hits in those 111 games, the first time he finished with more hits than games played. And this is, and mind you, he played 22 less games in the year before. He finished with 9 more runs. His runs went up from 49 to 58. You saw an uptick from his doubles from 29 to 34. The first time he finished the season with 34 doubles. You'd see his home runs jump from 10 home runs to 18. His RBIs from 52 to 61. His batting average jumped up from 267 to 287, and his OPS jumped from 706 to 828. He still wouldn't be recognized as an all-star, but his defensive prowess, despite the fact that he missed 50 games in the season, would still result in him winning the Gold Glove at the end of the year. And now by the end of his second year in the league, he's a 2-time Gold Glove winner. And it was officially time that he made that switch on the offensive side of the plate, which he did his next year. In 2015, his age 24 season, or his third season playing professionally in the league, he would play 157 games in a season where the Rockies would finish 68-94 with 2 more wins than the year before. In his third season in the league, Nolan Arenado would make his very first All-Star game as he finished 8th in MVP voting. He won the Silver Slugger and the Gold Glove. In those 157 games he played, he finished with 177 hits. That's 20 more hits than games played, which of course impressive. He saw himself get 50 more hits than the previous year. He finished with 97 runs, the most runs he'd ever finished with by a long while. He upped his doubles from 34 to 43. He saw his home runs and RBIs increase from 18 and 61 to 42 and 30 or 130. His home runs went from 18 to 42, more than doubling, and his RBIs went from 61 to 130, which is double the production. You rarely ever see that in a season from a baseball player. He kept his batting average at about the same, at about 287. He saw his OPS jump from 828 to 898. He would go on to lead the National League in total bases for the first time in his career, and he also led the league in sacrifice flies as well. Like I said, he would finish 8th in MVP voting in a season where Josh Donaldson would end up winning the Bryce Harper would end up winning the MVP in the National League. He would win the Gold Glove for his third year in a row, and this time he'd win the Silver Slugger for the very first time in his career. And after being named an All-Star, the Rockies did not make the playoffs, but of course, Nolan Arenado was starting to cement himself as a Colorado Rockies great, because for the first time, in addition to winning the Gold Glove, he won a batting award, which shows that he was an elite baseball player from both sides of the plate. I think, and in 2015 was the year he arrived. In 2016, the very next year, his fourth season in the league, his age 25 season, he would play 160 games, leading the National League in a season where the Rockies would finish 75 and 85 with the third best record in the National League West. They completely missed the playoffs again, but they won 7 more games than the previous season. Nolan Arenado would see even though he played 160 games, he finished with 182 hits in those 160 games, as he would go on to be named an All-Star for his second year in a row. But I digress. In those 160 games, in addition to those 182 hits, the second time he finished with at least 162 hits. He finished with 116 runs, the first time he ever eclipsed the 100-run mark, and that's actually the most runs Nolan Arenado's ever put up in a season. He would see his doubles drop from 43 to 35, but 35 is still incredibly high, the third season in a row in which he put up at least 30 doubles. He saw himself put up 6 triples, the most triples he ever put up in a season up until that point. He saw his home runs hover about the same. They were from 42 in 2015, they were 41 in 2016. His RBIs went up by 3 as he finished with 133 RBIs, leading the National League in home runs and RBIs for the second year in a row, which of course, uncharted territory. The fact that he did it once is impressive. The fact that he did it twice shows that it's no fluke. He would see his batting average jump up a little bit from 287 to 294. His OPS increased from 898 to 932. The first time you'd see his OPS jump over 900, and he would lead the National League in total bases for the second and the most recent time in his career to date. This year, he would finish 5th in MVP voting in a season where Chris Bryant would win the MVP and he would take the World Series home to Chicago. But additionally, Nolan Arenado, like I said, he would be named to his second All-Star game. He would be given his 4th career Gold Glove in his 4th career season, and he would be given his second Silver Slugger, just showing that his last season was not a fluke, that in addition to being the best third baseman in the National League since he's gotten there, he's starting to show that in 2 years of 2 years straight of finishing with 40 home runs and 130 RBIs, he's a player that should most definitely be taken seriously. So this transitions into his 2017 season, into his age 26 season. In 2017, his 5th year in the league, in this year he would make his 3rd straight All-Star season as he played 159 games in a season where the Rockies finished with an 87 and 75 record. They would qualify for the wild card game this season because they were just the team that made it through. And after playing one less game than the year before, Nolan Arenado would see his hits increase from 182 to 187. That is the most hits Nolan Arenado has ever put up in a season to this date. This 3rd season in a row, he finished with at least 162 hits, 162 the amount of games in a season. This would end up being the fourth season in a row he finished with more hits than games played. He finished with 100 runs. This is the second time in his career he's reached the 100 mark, and the third time he had at least 95, which is insane, in a row. He would see his doubles increase to 43. That's the second time he's ever put up that many doubles in a season. That's tied with his career high. This is the only time in his career he'd lead the National League in doubles. He finished with 7 triples on the season, which is the most triples he'd ever put up in a season. He'd see his home runs dip from 41 to 37. But this is the third season in a row he finished with at least 35 home runs. And this is the third season in a row he finished with at least 130 RBIs. In this span of 3 years, from 2015 to 2017, he finished with 120 home runs and 393 RBIs. And then in 2017, he would end up with a 309 batting average. The first time he ever finished with a 309 batting average he finished with a batting average above 300 in his career. He finished with a 959 OPS. The second time in his career he had an OPS over 900. He even had more total bases than the year before, but this year he wouldn't lead the league in total bases. In addition to, so in this season, he would go on to make an all-star game for the third year in a row. He would finish in the top 10 of the MVP voting for the third year in a row, as he finished fourth in the year that Giancarlo Stanton won the MVP. And then he would go on to finish with his 5th Gold Glove in his first 5 seasons in the league, which rarely ever happens. And he finished with his 3rd straight Silver Slugger to show that this dude is for real. And that out of all third basemen to walk through the National League in that 3-year stretch, there was no better player than Nolan Arenado. Looking at that stretch, even in itself, or I guess I'll continue just to show what this dude's dominance has been on. But in those 3 seasons, you'd see a 297 batting average with a 930 OPS as he finished with 546 hits in 476 games, 120 RBIs and 393 RBIs in 3 seasons. But I digress. Following the 2017 season, they would end up losing in the National Wild Card game to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and that was their season. But that was the very first time Nolan Arenado made the playoffs. And this would transition into his 2018 season or his age 27 season in 2018, his 6th season in the league. In this season, Nolan Arenado would make his 4th straight All-Star game as he played 156 games for a Colorado Rockies organization that won 91 games. And they won 4 more games than the year before, the most wins that they've ever won since Nolan Arenado had been there. And once they had made it here, they had qualified for the wild card game. But in the season itself, Nolan Arenado would finish with 175 hits in those 156 games. That's the 3rd season in a row he finished with at least 175 hits on the season. He would finish with 104 runs. The 3rd season in a row he had at least 100 runs in a season. He finished with 38 doubles. The 5th season in a row he finished with at least 30 doubles on the season. He had 38 home runs, which actually led the National League. This is the 3rd time he led the National League in home runs. And this would also be the 4th season in a row he finished with at least 35 homers. He finished with 110 RBIs, which is the least RBIs he'd had since 2014. But still, 110 is incredibly ridiculous. It still rarely happens. He would see his batting average jump down a little bit from a 309 to 297, what it was about the year before his 309. And he saw his OPS drop down to about a 935 to what it was the year prior. Like I said, Nolan Arenado would not only make his 4th straight All-Star game, he would finish the highest in the MVP voting that he ever would. He finished 3rd in National League MVP voting in the year that Christian Yelich ended up taking it home in Milwaukee. He would end up winning his 6th Gold Glove in his 6th season, which of course, the fact that he's winning 6 gold gloves in his 6th season should point to the fact that he's incredibly great at defense. But still, and following that season, he would end up qualifying for his 4th straight Silver Slugger, the most recent Silver Slugger that Nolan Arenado has been given to date. And looking at this stretch in which and that ended the 4-year stretch in which he won the Gold Glove and the Silver Slugger at the position in the National League for third baseman, and in the stretch as the National League's best third baseman. We're talking about a 632 game stretch. We're talking about 721 hits, 159 doubles, 158 home runs, and 503 RBIs in that 4-year stretch, with a 297 batting average and a 931 OPS. We're talking about elite baseball within this stretch, a stretch which I believe alone could get him into the Hall. But of course, nonetheless, this would transition into his age 28 season in 2019, his 7th season in the league, where he would make his 5th consecutive All-Star game after playing 155 games in a season where the Rockies finished with a 71-91 record, as they would end up losing, or they won 20 less games than the year before and completely missed the wild card round, unlike before. But really quickly, going back, like in 2018, they beat the Cubs in the wild card and they lost to the Brewers in the DS. They lost to the MVP that season, Yelich, but that's virtually how that went. But looking at how he fared in 2019, the last full season that he played, he would play 155 games, and that's one of those 155 games he finished with 185 hits. This is the 5th season in a row he finished with at least 160 hits on the season, more hits than the games that that there would be possible to play. And he finished with 102 runs. The 4th season in a row he finished with 100 runs, and the 5th season he had at least 97. He finished with 31 doubles, which would be the 6th straight season he finished with at least 30 doubles on the season, even though it'd be the least amount of doubles within that stretch. He finished with 41 RBIs, the third time in a 5-year stretch that he finished with at least 40 home runs in a season. He finished with 118 RBIs. This is the 5th straight season he finished with at least 110 RBIs on the season under his name. And then not to mention, he finished with a 315 batting average, the highest batting average he'd ever put up in a season. He would also put up a 962 OPS, which is the highest OPS he'd ever put up to date. In addition to being named to his 5th straight All-Star game, he was given his 7th Gold Glove in his 7th season in the league, which is approaching not even Hall of Fame, just like all-time great territory. And this year he would end up finishing 6th in the MVP voting, or in an MVP race, where Cody Bellinger would end up winning in the last full season for the Dodgers. And this would be the last season, technically to date, that Nolan Arenado has made an All-Star game, ending his 5-year stretch, his 5-year run. In that run, 199 home runs and 621 RBIs within that span, with a 300 batting average, should kind of speak for itself. But following the stint where he was an All-Star, this would transition into the 2020 season, which, as many are familiar, was heavily impacted by the coronavirus, or the COVID-19 virus. And because it hit the world in about February, March, baseball never got a chance to start its season on time. So they had to delay the start till mid-July, and they had to shorten the season to 60 games. And a lot of players ended up opting in, opting out. In Nolan Arenado's final season in Colorado, he would play 48 of the 60 games, where they would finish 26-34 as a team. The Rockies would completely miss the playoffs, but Nolan Arenado would still put up the season that he could. In the 48 games that he played, he finished with 46 hits. That's the first time he finished with less hits than games played since his rookie season in 2013. Following off that, he would finish with 23 runs in those 48 games, finishing with 2 doubles, 8 home runs, and 26 RBIs. He finished with a 253 batting average and a 738 OPS in what was essentially a lost season. Even though he hadn't won a Silver Slugger since 2018, he would end up winning his 7th consecutive Golden Glove. This would be his 8th consecutive Golden Glove. No player at the third base position has ever won 8 consecutive Gold Gloves. And the fact that he's been doing so for so long, it just speaks to the model of consistency at the third base position, which is Nolan Arenado. But following this short season in which the Rockies would come up short, of course, in every single way, Nolan Arenado would end up signing with the St. Louis Cardinals, or I guess he was actually traded to the St. Louis Cardinals, and ever since, they have, it seems as though Nolan Arenado, he wants to be there for a very long time, and now that he's on a team with a tradition of winning and a tradition of course, like of star power and consistency. Let's see what he can do on this team that might give him his best chance to win his first World Series. So far in the season, Nolan Arenado, I mean, this is his age 30 season. We are right now 12 games into the season, we're not 12 games into the season. The Cardinals are 12 games into the season as Nolan Arenado is turning 30 today. Thus far in the season, the 12 games he's played, he has 15 hits in the 12 games that he's played, more hits than games played. 3 doubles in those 12 games. He has 7 runs so far, incredible. He has 3 home runs and 8 RBIs on the season. Thus far in the season, he's batting .319, which is right now on pace to be higher than his highest batting average season in 2019. Right now, he has a .947 OPS, which is leveling about what he did when he was in the midst of his all-star streak. And as of right now, the St. Louis Cardinals are sitting in the very middle of the NL Central. They have the 3rd best record out of 5 teams as they currently trail the Milwaukee Brewers and the Cincinnati Reds by a game in the division, just to show where they are. And if you ever get a chance, I would check out Nolan Arenado today. Today on his birthday, they will go to Philadelphia to face off against the Phillies. As we look at where Nolan Arenado here is as he enters this game today, he's 30 years old. He has quite possibly one of the greatest resumes in the history of baseball at his back, and he's not even close to being done yet. Of course, with this, I believe that Nolan Arenado is an elite player that he's one of the best players I've ever seen. And the fact that he's won a Gold Glove every single year that he's been here should speak to his excellency. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 21 minutes of this piece. I'm James Sims, and I want to thank everyone for, once again, if you ever get a chance, check out Nolan Arenado. He's currently wearing number 28 for the St. Louis Cardinals. But yeah, if you ever get a chance, watch him play defense. One of the best defensive players you'll ever see. And with that said, thanks once again for listening to all 20 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well. Once again, today is Friday, April 16th, 2021, and I want to wish Nolan Arenado a happy 30th birthday. And once all of today's exhibitions are done, I will get back to tomorrow on Saturday, April 17th with a new episode of The Elite. Thanks once again, and peace out. I'll catch you tomorrow.